The mall buzzed with the usual Friday chaos. Tired shoppers dragging bags, kids running between displays, music humming softly overhead. Leila Vance moved through it all as if underwater. Her mind fogged after a day that had felt never-ending. 8 straight hours of spreadsheets. Misplaced invoices and complaints that blurred into one another had left her drained. Her boss had barked orders all morning, her lunch was cold by the time she'd eaten, and the accounting team had somehow miscalculated everything. Again. All she wanted was silence. On her way out, though, she noticed her trench coat, the one she'd worn for 4 years, was hanging by a single thread. The color had faded from forest green to something closer to dust. She sighed. Maybe it's time for a new one. Leila usually hated shopping after work. The crowds, the fluorescent lights, the endless mirrors, it all made her skin crawl. But that evening, something tugged at her. Maybe it was exhaustion, or maybe it was instinct. Either way, she walked through the glass doors of Silverline Boutique, a store she'd passed dozens of times but never entered. Inside, warm air wrapped around her like a blanket. The faint scent of perfume drifted between racks of coats arranged in perfect symmetry. A sales associate with a bright smile appeared almost instantly. "Good evening. Looking for anything in particular?" A trench coat. Something classic. Everyday wear, of course. "What size?" 10. The young woman disappeared among the racks, leaving Leila to browse. Her eyes caught a deep navy blue coat. Elegant, belted, structured. She ran her fingers along the sleeve. The fabric was soft, heavy in a good way. She smiled faintly. Maybe today wasn't a total loss. "Here we go," the associate said, returning with 3 coats draped over her arm. "Try these on and see what feels right." Leila nodded, taking the navy one. The fitting rooms were tucked in the back corner, 3 curtained stalls side by side. The first was occupied. She could hear a woman's muffled voice on a phone call. She stepped into the second stall and closed the curtain behind her. The coat slid over her shoulders perfectly. She turned toward the mirror. The shape flattered her. For a moment, she almost felt like herself again. Confident, composed, alive. Then, just as she reached to unbutton it, a man's voice floated from the next fitting room. "I told you she won't figure it out." Leila froze. That voice, deep, familiar, unmistakable. Her pulse quickened. "Yeah, the papers are already signed," the voice continued, amused. "The loan's in her name, not mine. She never checks the forms. Just signs whatever I hand her." Her breath caught in her throat. No, it couldn't be. Marcus. Her husband. She pressed a trembling hand to the curtain, trying to steady herself. Her mind scrambled to make sense of it. Maybe it was someone else with the same voice. Maybe, then came a soft laugh. A woman's, followed by Marcus again. "Relax, babe. The bank didn't even ask questions. We'll have the cash by Monday." "Cancun, here we come." Leila's world tilted. Her knees weakened. She sank onto the small ottoman in the corner, staring blankly ahead. Cancun? A loan in her name? Her heart pounded so loudly she almost missed the next part. "She won't notice the withdrawals," Marcus said casually. "I handle all her finances." "She trusts me too much." The words hit harder than any slap. Every little moment of the past year snapped into sharp focus. The secretive phone calls, the unexplained late nights, the business trips that suddenly made sense. Leila's trembling hand found her purse. She pulled out her phone and opened the voice recorder. The red dot glowed faintly. If she was hearing this right, she needed proof. Her husband's voice came through again, smooth and confident. "She's too naive. Thinks I'm stressed from work. In 2 weeks, we'll be sipping cocktails while she's sitting at home paying off the loan she doesn't even know exists." Leila pressed record. The seconds ticked. Her husband's betrayal filled the silence between them like poison seeping through a crack. Her pulse steadied, replaced by something colder than anger. Resolve. When she finally stood, she adjusted the coat, breathed once, and stepped out of the fitting room. There he was. Marcus. Laughing beside a younger woman in a red dress, the same laugh she'd heard through the wall moments earlier. Leila raised her phone slowly, its screen still glowing red. "I hope you enjoyed your conversation," she said quietly. Marcus turned, his smile vanishing, color draining from his face. "Leila?" She met his eyes, voice calm but razor sharp. "I recorded everything." The woman beside him blinked, confused. Marcus froze, pale, breathless, exposed. Leila didn't wait for a response. She turned and walked toward the exit, each step steady and deliberate. Outside, the cold air hit her like truth, sharp, undeniable. Her life, as she'd known it, was over. But something new was just beginning. The taxi ride home blurred past in streaks of light and motion. Leila sat motionless in the back seat, phone clutched tightly in her palm. The faint red icon on the screen, the saved recording, felt heavier than stone. It was proof, but it was also poison. When she finally reached her apartment, she paid the driver mechanically and climbed the stairs one slow step at a time. Inside, the silence felt foreign, as though she were trespassing in someone else's life. The framed wedding photo on the wall seemed to mock her. Marcus's smile, the same one she had fallen in love with 8 years ago, now looked almost sinister. Leila sank onto the sofa and pressed play. Marcus's voice filled the room again. Crisp and clear. She doesn't even read the papers. I tell her they're job forms and she signs them. The bank won't check. By next week, we'll have the money. Leila stopped the playback halfway through. Hearing it again made her stomach twist. She stared out the window at the city lights blinking against the dark sky. $45,000, she whispered. How could you? Her hands shook, but her thoughts were sharper than ever. Crying wouldn't fix this. She needed to act. She grabbed a notebook, flipped to a blank page, and started writing everything she remembered. Time, date, location, words, even the details of the woman's voice. Half an hour later, the page was full of notes. The last line she wrote in bold letters. Go to the bank first thing in the morning. Then she underlined it twice. Leila moved to her bedroom, opened the bottom drawer of her dresser, and pulled out the folder where she kept all important documents. Her passport, the condo deed, old bills. Nothing looked unusual. But when she remembered Marcus's desk drawer, the one he always said was work stuff, a cold realization hit. She had never once looked inside it. Crossing the room, she pulled the drawer open. Inside, a tangle of receipts, pens, and envelopes. One white envelope was sealed, thick, unmarked. She hesitated only for a second before tearing it open. Her breath hitched. A loan contract stared back at her. Her name printed neatly at the top, her signature scrawled across the bottom, but not in her handwriting. Her knees gave way. She sat hard on the edge of the bed, eyes fixed on the document. Every line screamed betrayal. The ink was still fresh. The date was only 3 days old. He'd done it. He'd actually forged her name. Leila took a photo of each page and saved them to her phone. Then she dialed the bank's helpline. After several rings, a woman answered cheerfully, "Good evening, Fidelity Bank. How may I assist you?" Leila swallowed the lump in her throat. "My name is Leila Vance. I think a loan has been taken out under my name. And I didn't sign for it." There was a pause, followed by the sound of keys clacking. "Please verify your ID number." Leila read it out slowly. The operator typed for a moment and then said quietly, "Yes, there is a loan in your name. $45,000, issued 3 days ago." Leila's chest tightened. "Can it be disputed?" "Yes, Ms. Vance, you'll need to come to a branch with your ID and file a fraud report. A handwriting analysis will be done. If the signature is proven forged, the loan will be annulled and referred to law enforcement." "Tomorrow," Leila whispered. "I'll be there tomorrow." When she hung up, she just sat there staring at nothing. Her world had shattered hours ago, yet a strange calm filled the silence now, a focused stillness that came only when pain turned into determination. She packed a small gym bag with clothes, her documents, and the forged loan contract. She couldn't stay here tonight. Marcus could come home at any minute, and she couldn't face him. Not yet. Her sister Imani's words echoed in her memory. "If you ever need me, just show up." Leila grabbed her keys. Just as she slung the bag over her shoulder, the lock on the front door clicked. Her blood ran cold. Marcus. She froze where she stood. The door opened and his voice drifted in, steady, almost casual. "Leila, you home?" He stepped into the hallway, stopping short when he saw the half-packed bag on the bed. His eyes flickered to the papers scattered across the table, then back to her. "Leila," he said softly, guilt flickering behind his nervous smile. "Let me explain." She said nothing. Marcus took a step closer, hands half raised as if approaching a wild animal. "Please, it's not what you think," Leila finally spoke, her voice low and icy. "You forged my name, Marcus. You stole my credit, my trust, and my future. What do you think it is? He faltered, eyes darting between her and the papers. I was going to fix it. I just needed time. Don't, she cut in sharply. I have the recording. Marcus went pale. You recorded that? Leila met his eyes, calm and deadly. Every word. Marcus's face turned the color of paper. Leila, please, let's just talk about this, he stammered, his voice trembling. You've got it all wrong. Wrong? Leila's tone was controlled, but her hands were shaking. I heard you. Every single word in that fitting room. The loan, the lies, the Cancun trip, remember? He looked like he wanted to vanish. It wasn't supposed to go this far, he whispered. Leila let out a dry laugh. You forged my signature, Marcus. You took out a loan in my name. Tell me, how far was it supposed to go? Marcus ran a hand through his hair, pacing. I had debts, Leila, you don't understand. It wasn't about you, it was survival. Survival? She snapped. You had money for vacations, hotels, and your mistress, but not to pay your debts? He flinched at the word mistress. Tiana doesn't mean anything, he said quickly. It was just a distraction. I was lost, okay? Leila took a slow step forward, her voice eerily calm. You were lost. And now you're found. Because I'm done being blind. He tried to reach for her hand, but she pulled back sharply. Don't touch me, she warned. Not after everything you've done. Leila, listen, Marcus pleaded, his tone desperate now. If you go to the police, I could lose everything. My job, my freedom. You should have thought of that before you signed my name, she cut in. You're not the victim here. I am. He opened his mouth, but she raised her phone between them, screen glowing with the audio file. I have this. Your voice. Every detail of your scam. Marcus's face twisted with panic. You wouldn't really go that far. Leila's lips curved into a bitter smile. You'll find out tomorrow. She picked up her bag, slinging it over her shoulder. He stepped in her path, blocking the doorway. Leila, don't walk out on me. We can fix this. I'll make the payments. You won't even notice the deductions! Her voice cracked like thunder. Move! Marcus froze at the authority in her tone. It was the first time she had ever spoken to him like that. Slowly, he stepped aside. Leila brushed past him, her heels striking the floor like a drumbeat of finality. At the door, she turned once more. Tomorrow morning, I'll be at the bank and then the police station. If you want to talk, you can talk to the detective. She walked out before he could reply. The night was cold and endless. Leila's cab pulled up in front of her sister's apartment across town just after midnight. The city lights glimmered on the wet pavement as if reflecting her own fractured thoughts. Imani opened the door in her robe, eyes widening at the sight of her sister's pale face. Leila, what happened? Leila stepped inside without a word and collapsed onto the couch. The moment Imani brought her a glass of water, everything spilled out, every word of the fitting room conversation, the loan papers, the recording, the confrontation. Imani listened silently, her expression hardening with every detail. When Leila finally finished, the only sound in the room was the ticking clock on the wall. That man, Imani muttered, shaking her head. I knew something about him never sat right with me. Leila's voice was barely a whisper. I feel so stupid. 8 years. 8 years of believing every word, never checking a single statement. Imani sat beside her and took her hand. You're not stupid. You trusted your husband. That's what decent people do. He's the one who destroyed that trust. Leila's eyes glistened. I'm scared, Imani. What if he twists this around? What if no one believes me? Imani squeezed her hand firmly. You have proof. You have the recording, the forged documents, and witnesses at the bank. He's cornered. Tomorrow we handle this step by step, Leila nodded weakly. The adrenaline was gone, replaced by exhaustion so deep she could barely sit up. Stay here tonight, Imani said. You're not going back there. Not with him in that house. Leila hesitated, then nodded. I packed a few things. Good, get some sleep. Tomorrow we fight smart. Leila barely slept. When she closed her eyes, Marcus's voice echoed in her head. She won't notice. She never checks. By dawn, her decision was made. At 8:45, Leila and Imani stood outside the Fidelity Bank branch downtown. The early morning chill bit at their cheeks, but Leila barely felt it. Her hands were steady now, her heart set. Inside, the bank smelled of polished wood and faint coffee. A young receptionist greeted them with a polite smile. I need to report a fraudulent loan, Leila said, her tone steady. "It was taken in my name." The receptionist's expression turned serious immediately. "Of course, ma'am. Please have a seat. Someone from our security department will meet you shortly." As Leila sat, her phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "Please don't do this. We can still fix it." Leila turned the screen face down on her lap. She wouldn't respond. Not this time. 5 minutes later, a man in a dark gray suit appeared at the door. "Ms. Vance," he said. "I'm from the fraud investigation team. Let's talk privately." Leila stood, squared her shoulders, and followed him. The office smelled faintly of leather and printer ink. A nameplate on the desk read, "Daniel Howard, Senior Security Specialist." He rose as Leila entered, his expression calm but attentive. "Please, have a seat, Ms. Vance," he said, offering her a polite nod. "I understand you've reported possible identity fraud?" Leila nodded, placing the folder of papers and her phone on the desk. "A loan was taken out in my name 3 days ago. I didn't sign for it. My husband did, without my knowledge." Mr. Howard didn't flinch. He opened a clean folder and pulled out a notepad. "All right, let's start from the beginning. How did you discover it?" Leila hesitated only a moment before answering. "I overheard him. He was in a fitting room beside mine, bragging to someone about how he forged my signature and took out a loan under my name." Howard's pen stopped mid-stroke. "You said you overheard him?" "Yes, I also recorded the conversation." She unlocked her phone, opened the audio file, and pressed play. Marcus's voice filled the office. Confident, careless, unmistakable. The specialist's expression darkened with every passing second. When it ended, the room fell silent. "That's extremely clear evidence," Howard said finally. "Do you also have a copy of the loan contract?" Leila slid the forged documents across the desk. "Here. You'll see that the signature isn't mine." Howard studied them, his trained eyes scanning every detail. "The pen pressure is different. The loops in the letters don't match. I'm fairly certain this is a forgery, but we'll conduct an official handwriting analysis to confirm." Leila exhaled shakily. "What happens now?" "We'll begin by filing a fraud report within the bank," he explained. "Once the signature analysis is complete, the loan will be canceled and the case forwarded to law enforcement." "How long will that take?" 5 to 7 business days. "But since you have solid evidence," he gestured toward her phone, "it may be resolved faster." Leila nodded slowly, relief mixing with exhaustion. "I just want this over with," Howard gave a reassuring smile. "You're doing the right thing, Ms. Vance. Most people freeze when they discover fraud this personal. You acted fast. That matters." She signed several forms, provided handwriting samples, and verified her ID. Imani sat quietly beside her, eyes filled with pride. When it was done, Howard stood and shook her hand firmly. "We'll contact you as soon as the results are in. Don't worry, your record will be cleared and your husband will be held accountable." "Thank you," Leila said sincerely. Outside, the morning sun had broken through the clouds. Leila felt lighter, as if a heavy fog was finally lifting. But she knew one thing. This wasn't over yet. "Next stop, the police," Imani said. They hailed a cab and headed downtown. The precinct was an old brick building with faded blue lettering above the entrance. Inside, an officer directed them upstairs to the Fraud and Financial Crimes Division. Detective Raymond Carter, a man in his 50s with weary eyes and a sharp mind, greeted them. "Come in, ladies. Please, sit." Leila handed over the documents and explained everything again, the forged papers, the recording, the bank visit. Carter listened intently, his expression unreadable. When she finished, he leaned back in his chair. "This is a textbook case of spousal fraud," he said. "Forgery of financial documents carries a serious penalty. We'll open an official investigation today." He typed rapidly on his computer, then printed out a form. "Sign here to confirm your statement. You'll be listed as the victim." Leila's pen didn't waver as she signed. "Now," Carter continued, "your husband will be summoned for questioning. You'll be notified once the hearing is scheduled." "Do you have somewhere safe to stay?" "Yes," Leila said quickly. "I'm with my sister for now." "Good. Don't return home alone until we've interviewed him." As they stood to leave, Carter gave a rare, encouraging nod. "You did the right thing. It takes courage to expose betrayal, especially from someone close." Leila smiled faintly. "I guess courage is all I have left." That evening, she sat at Imani's dining table with a mug of tea, staring at the city through the window. The day had felt endless, from the confrontation to the bank, then the police. Yet beneath her exhaustion, a quiet strength had begun to take root. Marcus had taken her trust, her name, her peace. But not her will. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from him. "Leila, please. Don't ruin us. I can fix everything. I love you." Leila read the words once, then deleted the message. She whispered to herself, "You already ruined us, Marcus." "I'm just cleaning up the mess." Amani returned from the kitchen and sat beside her. "Tomorrow you start fresh. The worst part's behind you," Leila nodded. "No more lies. No more pretending." They sat together in silence, two sisters against the storm, until Leila's phone rang again. Unknown number. She frowned and answered cautiously. "Hello?" A calm male voice responded. "Ms. Vance, this is Detective Carter. We've just served your husband a summons. He's agreed to come in for questioning tomorrow morning." Leila's grip tightened on the phone. "Thank you, Detective." When she hung up, Imani studied her face. "You okay?" Leila exhaled. "Tomorrow, everything changes." The next morning dawned gray and heavy. Clouds hung low over the city like a warning. Leila barely touched her breakfast, her thoughts circling around what was coming. Marcus, the man she'd once trusted more than anyone, was about to be questioned for betraying her in the most personal way possible. Imani noticed her sister's silence. "You don't have to go through this alone," she said softly. "I'll come with you." Leila shook her head. "No, I need to face this myself." At 9:30, Leila arrived at the precinct. Her heart pounded, but her steps were firm. Detective Carter met her in the hallway outside his office. "He's inside," the detective said quietly. "We're just starting." Through the narrow window, Leila saw Marcus seated at a metal table, his hands clasped together, shoulders slumped. He looked smaller than she remembered, like a man whose confidence had been stripped away. Carter gestured for her to wait in the observation room next door. It was dimly lit, separated by a one-way glass panel. From there, Leila could see everything without being seen. The detective entered the room with a calm but commanding presence. "Marcus Vance," he began, placing a folder on the table. "You've been accused of fraud, forgery, and unauthorized financial activity under your wife's name. Do you understand the charges?" Marcus nodded mutely. His voice cracked when he finally spoke. "Yes." Carter opened the folder and slid out the loan agreement. "This is the contract signed 3 days ago. Your wife claims this is not her signature. Our preliminary analysis agrees. Would you like to explain?" Marcus stared at the page. His fingers twitched. "It's not what it looks like," he said quickly. "I didn't mean to commit fraud. I just borrowed her name. I was going to pay everything back before she even noticed." "Borrowed her name?" Carter repeated, eyebrows raised. "That's not borrowing, Mr. Vance. That's a felony." Marcus ran a shaky hand down his face. "Please, I was desperate. My credit was destroyed after a car loan default. I just needed a clean name for one last chance." Carter leaned back. "So you admit the signature isn't hers?" Marcus hesitated. I signed it. "Thank you," Carter said evenly. "That's called forgery." Marcus's head dropped into his hands. "She wasn't supposed to find out," he muttered. "I was going to fix it. I swear." The detective pulled out a small recorder and pressed play. Marcus's own voice filled the room, smooth, arrogant, and damning. "She doesn't look at paperwork. She trusts me with everything. I told her they were forms for my job and she signed." Marcus flinched. The blood drained from his face. "Where did you get that?" "Your wife recorded you," Carter replied. "It's solid evidence, Mr. Vance. So let me ask again. Do you deny forging her signature?" Marcus exhaled shakily. "No. And the money, $45,000, you plan to use it for a trip to Cancun?" He froze. Carter cut him off. "Don't bother lying. It's on tape." Silence fell like a curtain. Marcus stared at the floor, eyes hollow. "I messed up," he whispered. "I didn't mean to hurt her. I just thought I could get ahead for once." Carter closed the folder. "You'll have the chance to make that clear in your statement. But let's be honest, Mr. Vance, what you did wasn't just a mistake. It was betrayal." An hour later, Carter stepped out of the interrogation room and joined Leila in the observation area. "It's done," he said simply. He confessed. Leila swallowed hard. "What happens next?" "We'll recommend probation and restitution since it's a first offense and you're the direct victim. But the final call is the court's." She nodded slowly, emotion tightening her throat. She had thought she'd feel triumph, but instead there was only exhaustion, and a quiet ache that came from realizing someone she'd built her life around was nothing but a stranger. "Will I need to testify?" "Only briefly," Carter said. "To confirm your statement. After that, it's mostly procedural." Leila exhaled deeply. "Thank you, Detective." As she left the precinct, rain began to fall. Slow, steady drops tapping against her umbrella. The city smelled of wet asphalt and fresh beginnings. For the first time in months, Leila felt free. The worst was over. That evening, Marcus called from an unknown number. She hesitated, then answered, her voice steady. "Leila," he began. His tone was no longer confident, just hollow. "They let me go for now. I'll pay everything back, I swear, please. I don't want this to end like this." Leila stood by the window, watching the rain trail down the glass. "It already ended, Marcus. You ended it when you turned our marriage into a contract I never signed. Can't we try again?" He begged. "You know I love you." She closed her eyes, tears threatening but not falling. "Love doesn't look like this." Then she hung up. The next week moved slowly. The loan was officially annulled. The police confirmed the case would be closed after restitution and probation. Marcus was free. But his freedom meant nothing to her now. She was already living a new kind of life, one defined not by marriage, but by self-respect. Imani smiled when she saw her one evening, paperwork finally complete. "So what now?" Leila looked at the window where sunlight broke through after a week of rain. "Now," she said, "I start over." 3 months passed. Winter faded, and spring crept quietly into the city. Buds on trees, golden light spilling through windows, and the soft hum of renewal that Leila could finally feel inside her own chest. She had moved into a small, one-bedroom apartment not far from her sister's place. The walls were freshly painted a warm ivory. She'd hung simple curtains and placed a pot of violets on the windowsill, a gift from Imani that thrived despite the cold. Every corner of the space whispered new start. Life, for once, was calm. Marcus had transferred the restitution money as ordered by the court, every cent. She hadn't replied to his last message, nor did she plan to. Forgiveness wasn't something she owed him. Freedom was enough. Each morning she brewed her own coffee, sat by the window, and watched people hurrying down below. She realized she'd stopped waking up with dread. No more lies. No more apologies for things she didn't do. At work, her boss noticed the change. "You seem different lately," Ms. Lee said one afternoon, handing her a report. "Calmer, happier," Leila smiled faintly. "Maybe I finally learned how to breathe." That weekend, Imani helped her hang a small shelf and unpack the last moving box. "It's official," Imani said with a grin. "You're home." Leila looked around, the soft light, the smell of coffee, the quiet peace, and nodded. "Yes, I am." A week later, she decided to do something for herself, something Marcus had always discouraged. She enrolled in an evening Spanish class at a local learning center. The first day, she walked into the classroom with nervous excitement. There were about 10 students, all adults, laughing and introducing themselves. Their teacher, a lively woman named Clara, greeted everyone warmly. By the second week, Leila could already form small sentences. She enjoyed the challenge. It reminded her that growth could come from chaos. One evening after class, as she packed her books, a man from her group approached her with a friendly smile. "Excuse me," he said. "You work in accounting, right? I thought I recognized you from the construction firm meeting last quarter." Leila blinked, surprised. "Oh, maybe, I'm Leila." "Julian," he said, offering his hand. "We finalized some project reports with your department a few months ago." She shook his hand, firm, polite, but warm. Small world. They chatted on the walk to the parking lot. Nothing personal, just easy conversation. He was calm, kind, and carried a quiet sincerity that didn't try to impress. "Would you like to grab a coffee after class sometime?" he asked casually. "Just as classmates. I promise I'm not one of those people who tries to turn every chat into a date." Leila laughed, a real laugh that startled her a little. Coffee sounds nice. Their coffees turned into walks, and the walks turned into long talks. Julian had gone through his own divorce the year before. Not messy, just quietly sad. He talked about learning to rebuild his life piece by piece. Leila understood that all too well. For the first time, she didn't feel like she had to guard her words or prove her worth. With Julian, conversation flowed easily, like water finding its way through stones. One evening, as they strolled along the river, he stopped and looked at her. "I know you're still healing," he said gently. "I'm not in a hurry. I just like spending time with you." Leila met his gaze, soft and steady. "I'm still learning to trust again," she admitted. "But I like spending time with you too," Julian smiled. "Then we'll take it slow." Months passed, and Leila found herself living instead of surviving. She took morning jogs, learned to cook her favorite meals again, and even picked up painting, something she hadn't done since college. One evening, she sat by the window of her apartment, brush in hand, painting a sunrise. Outside, children played in the courtyard, their laughter echoing up through the walls. For the first time in years, she realized she wasn't lonely. She was at peace. Leila looked at the list she'd written months ago on her phone. Sign up for Spanish classes. Go to the ocean. Find a new hobby. Learn to trust myself, she smiled. She'd done them all, except the ocean, that summer. She kept that promise to herself, too. She stood barefoot on the sand one bright morning, the waves curling around her feet, the sun rising over the horizon. The wind tugged at her hair, cool and salt-sweet. She breathed deeply, eyes closed, and whispered to the sea, "I made it." The ocean roared back in approval. Leila knew life would never be perfect. There would still be storms, still days of doubt. But she also knew she would never lose herself again. She had built a life that was her own, a life without lies, without fear, without pretending, just truth, freedom, and the quiet beauty of starting over. She looked out at the horizon, smiled, and said softly, "The past is a lesson, not a prison." And as the tide rolled in, Leila Vance finally walked forward into her new life, her new beginning.